Hello, Las Vegas, and welcome to Studio G, the magazine edition. Today, we'll take a look at our top stories from earlier this week, including the destruction brought to the Philippines by Typhoon Haiyan and their future recovery plans. A new drug is easily being made from everyday household products concerning the community. And an update on Obamacare and how it will affect local healthcare holders. All this and more coming up on Studio G Magazine.
We are broadcast students
in the School of Journalism and Media Studies at UNLV.
We are senior producers.
Live over the web, we bring you news at noon.
In an all-student production,
behind the scenes and in front of the screen.
Reporting, investigating, and covering news.
In the Valley, throughout the country, and around the world.
Today is Friday, and you're watching Studio G Magazine on UNLV-TV, the week in review.
Hello and welcome to Studio G Magazine, the week in review. I'm Honey Love. We begin today's news with an update on the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. Reporting from the newsroom, Elena Ledbetter gives us some insight. Elena?
Yes, honey, since Typhoon Haiyan, the Leyte and Samar provinces in the Philippines last Friday, it has left the homes and buildings in shatters. With so much damage, poor sanitation, and a lack of medicine and stagnant water poses a further health threat to parts of the country. According to those in the Philippines, natural disasters such as typhoons are common in their country. Many neighboring islands have been sending aid to the disaster areas. I was able to sit down with a university student from the Philippines and talk with him over Skype to hear what he and others are doing to help.
I mean, this is normal for us, but not this bad. I'd like to think that it defied the laws of physics. You know, it was just something that we never could prepare for.
Miko Clavano, a student at Ateneo de Manila University, worked for the last 7 days this week with other volunteers at his university to provide aid for those who are affected by the storm. Haiyan's ferocity set records, sustaining winds of 160 miles an hour and gusts up to 186 miles an hour across the Leyte, Samar, and northern parts of the Cebu Islands, leaving families with nothing. Clavano is thankful the storm did not affect his family.
My family in Cebu, they live in the city, which wasn't as affected as the northern part of Cebu.
But this does not mean Clavano will not help those in need. His university has set a goal of providing more than 82,000 white bags filled with goods that will feed a family of 4.
Here at Ateneo, we load these sacks of rice, water, and canned goods into trucks of the Philippine Marine. Then they're the ones in charge of transporting these all the way to the affected areas down south.
Clavano and his entire school, about 18,000 volunteers, have been working non-stop since last Monday. Clavano has put in about 30 to 40 hours of volunteer work so far and plans to continue. He encourages all who are wanting to help to donate the most important resources the island needs right now.
Any type of donation would be welcome, but I suggest, first of all, to donate the most basic needs, which is water and food.
And now 20 countries have been pledging to help provide resources for the Philippines. As Clavano said, natural disasters are familiar in the Philippines, and Leyte and Samar are among the poorest provinces in the country. Clavano sees poor political control and authority as the reason for the scant aid in his country.
In times like these, you just have to scrap all politics that you're into and just help out.
Clavano also said during the interview the country is looking at an estimated cost of $12 billion to bring the provinces back to what they were before the storm. We will keep you posted on the status of the Philippines as more information comes in. To donate directly to the Philippines, you can visit the American Red Cross website at redcross.org, or you can call 702-791-3311. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Elena Ledbetter. Now we'll send it back to Honey Love for more in the Week in Review.
Keeping up with this week's national news, the recent death of an African-American woman in Michigan by a white homeowner is causing national upheaval and reigniting the racial debate in this country. Reporter Tommy Laren takes a closer look.
Racial issues have deep roots in our nation's history. The media plays a critical role in race and racial perceptions. Trayvon Martin's death in 2011 sparked a national controversy that continues to flicker today. The recent death of Michigan woman Renisha McBride has reignited that flame. The question is the media intentionally and unnecessarily fueling the racial blaze? 19-year-old Renisha McBride, an African-American, was killed by a shotgun blast to the face in an incident that occurred in the pre-dawn hours of November 2nd. Around 3 a.m., McBride stumbled up the front steps of Theodore Wafer's Dearborn Heights residence. Wafer told police he thought someone was breaking into his home when his 12-gauge shotgun accidentally discharged, killing McBride. McBride's family said she was probably trying to seek help after a car accident when she arrived at the man's home. They believe she was racially profiled. The toxicology report revealed that McBride had a blood alcohol level of more than twice the legal limit for driving. She also had marijuana in her system. Dearborn police say that there was no indication that race was a factor in the shooting, but civil rights leaders are calling foul and are pressing for a thorough investigation of the case. Whether or not the shooting was racially motivated is unknown. The media, however, is not shying away from discussing the ongoing case in racial terms. Journalism and Media Studies graduate student Jason Hawley isn't surprised by the media's coverage of the case.
The media certainly integrate race as a salient factor for these cases, and as such, people tend to view race as a salient factor because people tend to get the majority of their information from the media. Really, race is only attributed insofar as the media attributes race to these events. So if the media were to look past these, or if they were to look past race in these events, there perhaps could be some changes in the societal mindset of this thing we call race.
Sarah Montez de Osha, also a journalism and media studies graduate student, believes the race card is commonly played by the mass media.
It keeps the viewers intrigued. It keeps people talking about what's going on. They're trying to construct this view for us to see race in a certain aspect and see these differences in people. So I think they use it to their advantage.
Cases like Trayvon Martin and now Renisha McBride remind us that although we are progressing, the United States is far from colorblind. For Studio G, I'm Tommy Laren.
54-year-old Theodore Wafer was charged with the death of Renisha McBride. We'll keep you updated on the investigation as it unfolds. Many Americans can recall exactly where they were on November 22, 1963, the day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. His murder has been one of the most discussed and dissected events of the 20th century, but discoveries are still being made. Reporter China Green has more.
As history was unfolding at Dealey Plaza, radio and telephone communications squawked between the Air Force Command Center, the White House, and Air Force One.
Wayside, this is Situation Room. I read from the AP Bulletin, Kennedy apparently shot in head. He fell face down in back seat of his car. Blood was on his head. Mrs. Kennedy cried, "Oh no," and tried to hold up his head.
Earlier this year, these rare audio recordings were discovered in the personal effects of General Chester Clifton, Jr., a military aide to President John F. Kennedy.
They want a post-mortem that needs to be done under law at Walter Reed.
Forensic audio and video expert Ed Premu was tasked with remastering and piecing together the new tape with older incomplete copies.
It's spine-tingling. It gives you goosebumps when you listen to it.
The result is an unflinching account of history unfolding in real time.
That is correct. That is correct.
We're hearing several commanders communicating logistical information about interrupting everybody's plans because the president was assassinated and what it's going to take to get them to all come together and deal with this disaster.
The president is on board. The body is on board. Mayor County is on board.
On the tapes, you can hear the military using code names. LBJ is volunteer.
We're waiting for the swearing in at the plane before takeoff. That's a volunteer?
John McAdams is a political science professor at Marquette University. He says these recordings are not likely to be the last pieces of history to surface.
The truth is a lot of stuff fell between the cracks. This particular tape, which was in the possession of General Clifton, took almost half a century to show up.
For Studio G, I'm China Green.
And 50 years later, JFK's death still remains a mystery. After the break, we will share with you some of this week's stories in Nevada's local news. Stay tuned.
My name is James Grant.
King Louie here.
This is Jennifer.
Crystal May Maguerza.
I'm Savannah. Zoe here.
This is your boy Miles Lowe.
Christian FGY.
Kaylin Hype. And I'm Jay Luna.
My Mind's Music.
Gonzo Radio.
Combox Radio.
Join us for Happy Hour.
The Miles Lowe Midweek Show.
Ill Vibe Theory.
On KUNV.
KUNV. KUNV.
KUNV HD2. 91.5 The Rebel.
Broadcast on Revcast.com.
Being a pedestrian in Las Vegas is becoming more and more dangerous, but lawmakers are looking to make a change. Reporter Farron Enos has more.
With so many recent pedestrian deaths here in the Las Vegas Valley, the community is crying out for leaders to do something, and officials are finally listening.
Councilman Ricky Barlow announced the results of a traffic study focusing on Martin Luther King Boulevard on Monday, and that changes are on the horizon. The study was conducted on MLK Boulevard between Balazar and Bartlett Avenues after 2 pedestrians were killed within recent months. There have been a total of 93 traffic-related deaths in the valley this year, and officials are looking to stabilize that number. Included in new safety developments will be lights, flashers, push buttons for crosswalks, and the 45-mile-per-hour zone will be reduced to 35 miles per hour. Along with the study, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police held a meeting of their own on Monday to discuss how to put a stop to the rise in pedestrian deaths, and a plan to issue more jaywalking tickets may be the next step in keeping people safe. UNLV students weighed in on the troubling situation, and student Marilyn Zavala doesn't think crosswalks will help the problem at hand.
I've been seeing on the news that there's a lot of pedestrians being ran over because just crazy drivers, and I think crosswalks, they don't really make it safer because they could just ignore it and just go by.
Student Madeleine Hofkin believes keeping pedestrians safe is a two-way street.
It's not just pedestrians, it's not just drivers. I think everyone needs to look up from their cell phone and start looking where they're walking.
With research being done and the community becoming more vocal, the Las Vegas community can only hope this will lead to safer streets. For Studio G, I'm Farron Enos.
Thanks, Farron. Looks like this may be just the beginning of many changes to come. Blood sugar checks, insulin shots and pumps, and endless doctor appointments. They are a scary scenario for anyone, especially for a 2-year-old. That's the reality for Legacy Maxwell. Legacy and his father shared their story with reporter Shelly Salbido about what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes.
Legacy Maxwell looks like your typical 2-year-old boy. He loves sports and also hanging out with his father, LeVar Maxwell. From the way he actively immerses himself into activities, you might never suspect Legacy is carrying a disease.
My son got diagnosed with diabetes at 13 months.
Serving as an advocate for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, LeVar Maxwell never expected this to be the norm for his son.
The hardest thing that I've seen is when he goes through his mood changes, because you don't know if he's, you don't know if it's his sugar that's causing the mood swings, or if it's just his, his age, or how a 2-year-old is supposed to act.
The learning isn't over for LeVar and Legacy, or for scientists who still aren't entirely sure what triggers type 1 diabetes. It comes on suddenly, can strike people at any age, and carries the threat of devastating complications.
Your immune system attacks certain cells in your pancreas that make insulin. They see them as a germ. And unfortunately, no matter what we do, it just keeps attacking. It's like a vicious cycle. So the body is no longer able to produce insulin, which you need for energy. So without insulin, within a week, a type 1 diabetic would die.
Alexis Noel is an advocate for JDRF and undergoes the complications of having type 1 diabetes through her son, Justice Noel. Alexis's son, Sincere, understands that his brother needs just a little more attention with everyday activities.
I have to get him bars and juice, and when he needs sugar, I give him something from a cookie jar, and sometimes when he's high, he's a little jerky, so I just have to deal with it or go to my room or somewhere else he's not.
As a juvenile diabetic, little Legacy wears an insulin pump that he uses each day. Legacy also has to test his blood sugar with finger pricks 6 to 10 times a day.
183. Yay!
Over the weekend, the Maxwells joined hundreds of people at the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation walk held at UNLV. It was a time for hope and excitement that one day there will be a cure, just like Legacy's team name, The Cure.
We need to find a cure so not only my son, but other people around the world can be cured from this disease.
There are no small steps in this journey. Every step, participant, and dollar raised brings JDRF closer to their goal of creating a world without type 1 diabetes. For Studio G, I'm Shelly Salbito.
The goal of JDRF research is to improve the lives of all people affected by type 1 diabetes, especially for children like Legacy Maxwell. The Auditory and Cognition and Development Lab on campus has a study for children to participate in. Reporter Christina Davies gives us more.
At UNLV's Auditory Cognition and Development Lab, there are ongoing studies involving the process on how infants and adults learn and understand about music and speech.
We bring in children and infants and expose them to different kinds of auditory stimuli, like complex structures like music and speech, and in order to see what aspects of music and speech they're most sensitive to and at what ages.
In their findings, it shows that children can tell the difference if a dancer is off-tempo. So these studies are
to get a closer look at how children process the auditory world around them and to see how they can make sense of that information and apply it in a variety of ways.
The lab is bringing together 2 studies to get a better understanding.
It measures 3 different domains. The first one is faces, so that kind of ties in with the other lab. Also, we try to look at how babies recognize different types of sounds, such as English phonemes, meaning things like ba and da, and music.
However, Matt Orlowitz is the lab manager for a study that just deals with facial recognition.
So our studies try to see how giving infants experience to a certain type of face influences their recognition of a different face. Also, we try to see how the facial parameters of the face, such as attractiveness and masculinity, femininity, things like that, how they affect how the baby recognizes these faces.
These studies have been around for many years. The study involving facial recognition found that if 2 pictures are displayed side by side and the baby is looking at one longer, it means he or she prefers that face.
For Studio G, I'm Christina Davies.
If you are interested in having a child participate in the study, visit the website at web.unlv.edu/labs/Rebel Lab. On the other side of the break, we'll check out the latest in Studio G reports, including Trackside with Bree Bradley. Stay tuned, Studio G Magazine will be right back.
Collegiate DECA promotes personal and professional development through competitive events, community involvement, and leadership development.
I joined DECA because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. So I got to meet people, network, and definitely work on my public speaking.
To join DECA, it's a very simple process. You have to pay a $25 membership fee. You can either come to our next meeting, our website, which is unlvdeca.co.vu.
We're open to all majors who are interested in business, finance, or hospitality-related fields.
Good afternoon, race fans, and thanks for tuning in to this week's segment of Trackside. As always, I'm Bree Bradley. We begin today with some tragic news from this weekend's Score Baja 1000. Kurt Caselli passed away this Friday as a result of injuries sustained in a crash just 80 miles from the finish. Caselli was in a leading position when he crashed at high speeds, resulting in severe head trauma. He later died of his injuries in Ensenada, Baja California, Mexico. While it is still unsure what caused Caselli's crash at race mile 796, Score officials now assure it was not a man-made booby trap. One of the more decorated competitors in the off-road ranks, Caselli was a 3-time AMA National Hare and Hounds champion. He had had won the Desafio Ruta 40 rally in Argentina this year. He also made his debut in the 2013 Dakar Rally. Despite being a newcomer to this famous race, Caselli won 2 Dakar stages. Last but not least, he was also a 3-time champion in the World Off-Road Championship Series, or WORCS. KTM published their official press release early Saturday morning. Head of KTM Motorsports, Pit Bierer, said, "Today we lost a KTM hero in the worst possible circumstances. We are shocked and saddened by this tragic news, and our thoughts and deepest condolences go out to Kurt's family. Kurt was much more than a very talented rider. He was also an exceptional team player. He represented and lived by the values and a passion for racing that lies at the very core of KTM. Our sport has lost much more than a great rider. We have also lost an excellent ambassador for off-road racing." While any death in the dirt bike world hits the racing industry hard, the death of Kurt Caselli will be felt worldwide. Kurt was nothing short of a legend on 2 wheels and a friend to anyone that he came in contact with. My thoughts and prayers are with all of Kurt's friends and family at this time. In a little bit lighter news, NASCAR finally concluded its 2013 Sprint Cup Series and crowned a champion. Now it's a hashtag, a reference to abs, and used to measure cans, but Jimmy Johnson makes his championship a 6-pack. Winning 5 consecutive championships from 2006 to 2010, Jimmy Johnson managed to gain his 6th by finishing 9th at Homestead this weekend. Finishing 7 spots behind Matt Kenseth put the 48 19 points ahead of the Joe Gibbs Racing driver in the 2013 chase. Kenseth started from the pole at Homestead but finished as a runner-up in the points season finale. Kenseth's teammate Denny Hamlin finished 1st, Dale Jr. finished in 3rd, followed by Martin Truex Jr. and Clint Boyer. Johnson managed to win this year's championship and finish at Homestead despite a few race scares, including on lap 194 when several cars stacked up on the restart. Johnson was forced to think quickly, making contact with title contender Kenseth. The contact damaged Johnson's left front fender and dropped him 15 positions from 8th to 23rd. Johnson managed to move up slowly into the top 10 after restarting 17th with 56 laps remaining.
That was Bree Bradley reporting this week's top news in the industry of speed. 2014 marks a special year in Nevada history, signifying the state's 150th anniversary. In celebration of Nevada entering the Union of the United States, Studio G brings you a segment dedicated to our state. Battleborn, here it is.
All means Nevada to me.
Today on Battleborn, we visit the Clark County Museum, located in Henderson, Nevada. So come on in. It's going to be a great time.
But our area was not part of the original breakup of counties, but when we became part of the state, we became part of Lincoln County. Clark County didn't get created until 1909.
This 30-acre museum shows you why it really is important that Clark County exists at all.
We would still be just a small town in the desert. We would not have had Nellis, the Strip. We wouldn't have the wedding industry, Henderson, gaming, and all of that would have been different. The nearest town to think of how we might have looked today if we hadn't become part of Nevada is probably Kingman. And so we've got houses from Boulder City, Henderson, Las Vegas, the county, the train depot. We've got a barn that was a homestead barn here. Got an outdoor, what we call the outdoor classroom. It's basically 4 different ecosystems of the desert. So there's a great deal to see here.
The museum also holds the Candlelight Wedding Chapel, which has the record for the most weddings performed in a single day, 425 weddings.
It's 2.5 minutes a wedding, counting walking time. So that's the time walking in. It's basically, do you, great, out.
The community aspect of this museum is just like stepping out of a time machine.
For example, it's not just that you see a house that's been embalmed. This looks like the residents just stepped out. I mean, there's food on the table, there's coupons and glasses out and that sort of thing in the kitchen. We want people to understand how, the reality of life here. Not that, this is a beautiful house and all the beautiful stuff in it. No, these are working people's houses. This is how people lived here. Anywhere that you're at, if you don't understand why that community exists, how can you care about it?
The Clark County Museum not only shows why Clark County is important to the people who live here, but why it's also so special to Nevada. For Studio G, I'm Katie McLean. And I also think I'm late for dinner.
Thanks, Katie. Be sure to tune in each week to see the historical settings of Nevada in Studio G's Battleborn. When we return from the break, we'll take a look at one of the local programs focused on children diagnosed with autism. We'll be right back.
Your community's farmers market. Welcoming, lively, friendly. A place where neighbors and friends come together to celebrate their community. With over 50 vendors, organic, sustainable, fresh produce are available just for you. Support and buy local at Fresh 52.
Learning proper social skills is very important in the autistic community. This week's segment of Let's Make a Difference highlights a special place where social skills are taught with a twist.
Let's make a difference today. Teach, encourage, and empower are three key principles of what Sports Social is all about. The program implements social skills and activities in a unique, fun environment with a primary focus on those affected by autism.
We offer private skill lessons in the area of sports, music, and art. That's like learning how to ride a bike or playing an instrument or learning to paint.
Andrew Devitt began working as an applied behavioral analyst tutor at an early age, and he decided that he wanted to share his passion of skateboarding.
Started teaching more and more kids how to ride bikes and skateboards, and somebody was like, hey, you should start a business, helping kids learn these things. So that was the beginning.
Andrew opened this amazing warehouse equipped with a skate park, a basketball court, a bouncy house, and social skills classrooms.
We do everything, sports, social skills, fun stuff, basketball, whatever.
Students take a special liking to the physical activity Sports Social has to offer.
And have fun, like biking, skating, social playing, and more.
The instructors at Sports Social apply their background in ABA therapy to meet the needs of their clients. It is more than just a job. It's something they love and receive a personal satisfaction from.
Just the feeling of accomplishment when a kid learns a new skill or learns a new social goal. That's the best part about it.
Andrew was recently rewarded a small business grant of $100,000. The warehouse has received many changes with the money. Sports Social has a re-grand opening last month. Devitt sees a bright future for his warehouse and his clients. If you are interested in learning more about Sports Social, visit sportssociallv.com. That was all the reviews we have for you on this Friday's edition of Studio G. I'm Honey Love, and have a great day, Las Vegas.